Hello YouTube family, I'm Carl Baldassarre, and today, by popular request, we're going to break down one of the greatest blues rock songs ever, Led Zeppelin's Since I've Been Loving You. In this video we're going to cover a lot of ground. I'm going to give you some historic background to the song, we're going to talk about the chord progression, we're going to look at the harmonic rhythm, melodic rhythm. Man, there's chord inversions, there's tritone substitutions, there's secondary dominance. This is an amazing song, and we're going to dig into it right now. Let's start with some historical context. This song was actually slated to be on Led Zeppelin 2, but they couldn't quite get it together in the studio. They weren't really happy with the way it was sounding, so they kind of pushed it off for Led Zeppelin 3. But in typical Led Zeppelin fashion, they took it on the road and worked it out on the stage like they did so many times. And when I was looking at their tour schedule, I saw that the first time they actually played Since I've Been Loving You live was on January 7th, 1970 in Birmingham, England. It was kind of a home game for them, I guess. But they played it every night all the way through the winter of 70 into the spring of 1970, all the way up until their first break in May of 1970 when they started the basic recording tracks. Between May and August of 1970, while they were on the road and during their breaks, they went into 3 different recording studios in the UK to get the basic tracks together. And finally, by August, they were ready to have the guitar solo placed on it. They were back in the States touring, and on a day off before they had a show in Nashville, Tennessee, I believe from my research that the guitar solo was recorded in Memphis on August 24th, 1970 in Ardent Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. And word has it that on the second take, Jimmy Page laid down probably one of the greatest guitar solos he's ever played on recording. Let's talk a little bit about the inspiration for the song. Actually, the song was inspired by 2 blues bands. One was the great Yardbirds, and the other one was an American band called Moby Grape. Now in the Yardbirds, they had a song called New York City Blues. It was written by their singer, Mick Ralph, and their rhythm guitar player, Chris Draja. And the guitar player in that band in 1966 was a guy named Jeff Beck, or as Jimmy Page refers to him as his arch buddy. And Jeff Beck had the opening lick to New York City Blues, and it went like this. Sound familiar? And then Jimmy Page took that and interpreted it like this. Quite an expressive interpretation of that lick, if you ask me. The other source of inspiration was from a San Francisco-based band called Moby Grape. They had a song called Never, and it was a slow blues song in 12/8, had a very lovely vibe, very slow vibe, very similar to kind of what influenced Led Zeppelin, Since I've Been Loving You. But for the most part, it was Robert Plant being inspired by the lyrics, which was working from 7 to 11. The actual original lyric was working from 11 to 7. And of course, other lines like Best of Fools and things like that were also inspired from Moby Grape. But still, Led Zeppelin stood on the shoulders of 2 great bands and absolutely took this arrangement in this song into the stratosphere. Before we actually get into the chord progression of the song, I want to talk a little bit about harmonic and melodic rhythm, because it really allows this song to breathe. And what I mean by that is that the amount of chords per bar are often very, very narrow. Really, it's kind of 1 chord per bar for the entire verse. And what that does is create this amazing open space, especially at slow tempos. And guess what? It allows this band and these incredible musicians to kind of speak with their talent into those voids. And this may be one of the best performances by each of the members of Led Zeppelin. It's absolutely astounding when you listen to like John Paul Jones's organ. Incredible playing, great control of the Leslie. His fills are beautiful. The phrasing is so soulful. I mean, it could be Reverend Charles Hodges from Al Green sessions. It's so incredible. And Robert Plant had one of his best performances vocally, going from whisper to scream. I mean, it's just incredible, and he's delivering the drama of the storyline, and it's very evident that you feel this sort of story of love betrayed. It's very powerful. And also we've got John Bonham great performance where he's very patient, but when he does his fills, they're so meaningful, and so he speaks through his playing, and he also squeaks through his playing because the famous Speed King pedal, which squeaked through the whole performance. And you have to ask yourself today, in today's production world and perfection sort of pursuit and kind of artificial sort of production, would they let one of the greatest rhythm track takes survive because of that squeaking pedal? I don't know, but I have to tell you, I'm so grateful that they kept this track because it is magic. Okay, let's talk about the chord progression of the song. It's a C minor song in 12/8 timing, and it basically toggles during the verses between the 1 chord, which is C minor, and the 4 chord, which is F minor. It's a little unbalanced because they also then will do C minor for 2 bars, and they'll toggle back to F minor for 2 bars. But they ultimately build to a delayed 5 chord, and it's a 5 minor chord. And when Jimmy plays the 5 minor chord, actually on the first vocal verse, he's doing it with an upstroke. Especially live, he does it with the upstroke, and you get a very, very bright sound when you do that. It's something like this. And he plays that with greater intensity as you get through the song, which is pretty cool. The other thing about that 5 chord is that later on in the song you'll get the major 5. So you've got a minor 5 and a major 5, which makes this song really unique as a blues song. It's quite clever how they do that. And the effect of delaying with the minor chords going back and forth into the 5 chord is a pretty cool technique as well. So a good thing to remember as a composer. Following the kind of the first half of the verse chords, that we get into a 2 chord bar of the 6 chord, which is A flat major, into back to the 4 chord. And Jimmy does that. He doesn't actually play the chord. He's actually playing at one point. He's doing the solo line, which is the live version of how he does that. And then when he's actually doing the rhythm part of that, he's just doing it with octaves. So you get the so he's decorating the A flat to F minor with these passing tones, B flat and G, and in octaves, upstroking the octaves. Really powerful. We're building density. It's getting more intense as we go in the chord progression. Now let's move into the second half of the verses, because this is where the compositional magic happens. These verse endings are incredible and very unique. You have chord inversions, you have secondary dominance, you have a tritone substitution. It is remarkable. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So to show you this second half verse chord arrangement, I'm just going to play you the chord sounds. I'm not going to actually play it the way that Jimmy plays it, because I'll do that in a moment, but I want you to hear this beautiful chord inversion series. The first chord is C minor over E flat, and then it's G over D, and then it's C minor over E flat, and then we get this E flat sound over B flat, right? And then that moves into the final closure of the verse, which is a D7 over A, and then a D flat major 7 over A flat. And then we go back to C minor. Now, to show you how beautiful this arc of chords is, let me play you the bass notes of each of the inverted chords and listen to this line. It's very classical sounding. We'll start with the C minor or E flat, and we'll go from there. Here we go. Back to C. So you get this line. That is gorgeous. It's very classical, and it gives these chord progressions an arc. So now let me play you that progression the way Jimmy Page plays it. And again, it's using sixth intervals, and Jimmy loves the sixth intervals. So here we go. So it's... That is an amazing sequence of intervals. So what's going on those two chords underneath what he's playing? The band is playing these two chord shapes. The first chord is a D dominant seventh, this chord. And it's inverted, second inversion, so it's over A. And that D7 is a secondary dominant because it's the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C minor. So we're substituting the 5 of the key with the 5 of the 5 of the key, and that's called a secondary dominant or a 5 of 5. That's the first chord. Again, it sounds like this. And then the second sound that we settle on is this sound of a D flat major 7, right? And that D flat major 7 is described as a tritone substitution because it's a substitution for the 5 chord. Again, we're going to substitute, instead of the G, we're going to go up a tritone, and then we're going to play the major 7th on that. And what makes that so connected and coherent going between those two chords, the D7 and the D flat major 7, is that we have a common tone of C. And so the sound of the chords would be C, and then D flat major 7, C, to C minor. So you have this beautiful common tone line going through that. And the way Jimmy does it is like this, with the motive in the middle. So it's C, C, and then C minor right there. So those are two really, really cool chords to put in a blues progression. Extremely unusual and just amazing. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a picking alteration that Jimmy does on this part of the verse, these second halves. He's using kind of a hybrid picking technique, and it's totally a Jimmy Page sort of exclusive thing, but he's using kind of a tremolo hybrid picking thing, so he's doing the progression like this. And he adds extra colors as he's doing it. So that little tremolo thing is a very Jimmy Page kind of claw hammer. You see that in White Summer, totally a Page thing. And I'd also like to point out a quote from Robert Plant as he's talking about this magnificent second half of the verse. And to quote Robert Plant, he said in a 2003 interview, "The musical progression at the end of each verse, the chord choice, is not a natural place to go. And it's so regal, so emotional. When we reach that point in the song, you could get a lump in your throat from being in the middle of it." I get you, Robert. Totally get it. Now let's talk a little bit about the guitar solo. I'm going to pick out a few of my favorite moments. The guitar solo starts on the studio recording at 3 minutes and 39 seconds. And it's arguably his greatest guitar solo ever in the studio. It's so fantastic. And he starts it with a classic kind of Page sort of triplet-y pull-off, you know? Something like that as it goes. It's pretty incredible. There's so many wonderful emotional parts to that solo. I'm very, very fond of the reverse rake. So amazing. And then when he switches to these major third bends, I mean, that is when the emotion really, really comes out. So as he wraps up the solo with this incredible descending flurry, we start heading towards the bridge, right? And you get this amazing dynamic moment as they come out of the... And so they have this amazing dynamic stop right there. By the way, the rhythm's doing that. Jimmy's up here doing the... right? And it all stops, the band stops, and Robert Plant screams out, "I said I've been crying." And then the band gets whisper quiet, a pianissimo, G7 sharp 9. And Jimmy does this beautiful fill. Oh, my tears, they fell like rain. But I got to give a shout out before that for John Paul Jones. Has this incredible organ riff right in the middle of that. He's got this amazing flurry, and it's blistering fast, but it's so great. So on to the third verse. So at 5 minutes and 34 seconds, we get the third lyrical verse. And this one is a really grooved and swinging verse. And the guitar, Jimmy's doing this arpeggiated guitar on the minor chords. So you're getting something like... Wait for it. The only C major in the entire song. So now let's talk about the coda, which is Latin for tail. It's the tag end of anything, and it's the tag end of this song. And it's a really powerful emotional moment here. And it's made powerful by this function substitution. Let me just do a brief little summary of what a function substitution is, because it's a great technique for composers to use, and they employ it at this most amazing moment. So a function substitution, and we'll put up a graphic for you here, is basically taking a substitute for any 1 chord, 4 chord, or 5 chord, the 3 primary chords of any song. And in this case, we're looking for a function substitution. That is a chord that's going to have the same function as the chord you're substituting. So we want to find a chord that's going to replace the C minor so we can interrupt the progression. And you can see on the chart that in C minor, the first and primary function substitution of a C minor is the 6th chord, an A flat major. And why this works and why you can substitute these chords rather frequently, and Bach did it all the time. Anytime you have a repeating progression, 1, 4, 5, you can use these secondary, primary and secondary function substitutions to create variety, but still keep the fundamental chord progression going. It works because of common tones. So in this case, we're going to substitute an A flat for a C minor. Why does that work? Because those 2 chords share 2 notes out of the 3 notes of the triad. So in the case of A flat, we have a C and an E flat, C and an E flat. In the case of a C minor, we have a C and an E flat. So there's so much common tonality, so you can substitute the 2 without really derailing the progression, but get a nice fresh look on it. And so this is a function substitution, so brilliantly placed at the end, and it's all kind of lining up to this emotional peak where you have Robert Plant singing a really high note that he's singing, that high F, and he's really expressing kind of the final exasperating moments of this love betrayal. And it's very cool. And you have Jimmy Page doing this amazing sort of tremolo picking thing on the A flat. And I really like how at the O2 Arena, the final concert, he goes right into this ending piece. now the final chord of the song. In the studio, we get these hammered perfect fourths. And in the live versions, you get varying altered dominant chords. In this case, at the O2, I believe it was a C9 sharp 11 chord. You could look at it as a B flat augmented over C, something like this. Pretty cool, right? What a way to end a blues song with an altered dominant chord. So there you have it, the incredible Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to take a moment to thank all my new subscribers. Really appreciate the support. I love your comments. Please like, subscribe, share if you can. Help us build this channel so we can keep bringing you new content as we go along. Any suggestions you have, please put them in the comment section. Thank you very much. So let me put that back together and play it the way sorry.
Too many peas?
Too many peas. Peter Pepper picked a peck of peppers.
You can do that, but you can't
I know.
play peas.
I know. Peter Pepper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Pepper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Pepper pick? That's not bad, right? Oh my gosh. That's my parlor trick. Okay.